You're watching Experience Comic Culture and Sales, streaming live daily to Facebook, YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter.
What's up, the internet? It's Kyle, and I'm very purple right now. Like purpler than I thought I was, but still somehow less purple than Barney the dinosaur, which is probably not how they thought we were going to start this show when I took Dan and Jay out of the studio, especially because we were just talking about cowpunk bands and 3-hit wonders from the 90s like Eve 6. So like really weird topics tonight on the show because Dan and I are in a weird headspace. I don't know. I don't understand. I'm learning songs because I'm playing with a band again, and it's just bringing back all kinds of weird memories. But this is in stores this week, where we talk about comic books, not music, that are in stores this week, including a book that I sent to these guys at like 3:00. So I don't know if they read it or not, but we'll see what happens. So stick around, and we're going to talk about comics.
Little red Corvette.
We will not play Prince.
Oh, that's right. He's really touchy. That stuff you can't. Yeah.
So when I was in college and I cut my first record, I did a cover of a Prince song with his blessing, and then he promptly wouldn't let me put it out on the record. So wasted all kinds of money. It was a whole thing, and so I will never play Prince again.
It's funny, you're playing the drums again. I just recently picked up my bass again and started playing.
I'm actually singing. Yes. It's a Irish rock kind of thing, and so it's four singers. I'm just singing the low part.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, like I'm not the lead singer. Oh God, no. But I can hold down the bass line.
So you're the
more likely I'm the papa mo mo.
Beat up. Papa mau mau. Oh, silver. Away.
Right. No, it's guys, that's Elvira, who we don't have a comic book from this week.
Yeah.
I know, I'm sad.
So, but no, it's a weird thing. Like I'm learning songs again, like anyway, so yeah, we read 10 whole books this week, or 9 books this week, something like that.
9.
Although one of them was long enough to be 7 books, so we'll talk about that in a minute. Well, 2 of them were actually quite long, so we'll talk about those as we go through this. But this is in stores this week, where we talk about books that are in stores this week. If you're out and about and you're looking for a comic book store to go to, visit comicshoplocator.com. Type in the area code of the area where you are, and it will tell you where there's a comic book shop nearby to you.
And publishers, if you're watching, I seem to be the curator for the books that go on this show. If you want your books on here and you're not sending them to me, they won't show up on the show. You can send me digital PDFs, and we will most likely take your, because I try to take from everybody who sends them, to give it a variety. So
is that why we had a number 8 of a series that we'd not read the first 7 books?
Number 9, yes, but it's the start of a new of a new story arc, and we did that with something's with killing the children, and that worked out really well.
It's really true. No, and believe it or not, I always rank the books in order by how much I like them. It's in the top 3, and I have no idea what the hell is happening. So
I feel the same way about it.
Yeah, it was real good, and I'm like, I don't know what's up. So
the bottom line is, if you want to be on the show, you got to send us your books to read.
Right. If you need emails to get them to us, glad to provide them.
Yeah.
So we will have Red 5 starting probably the first of next month. It's just going to take us that long to get that worked out with them. But we'll start having more Mad Cave weekly. Mm-hmm. Now that I've got a full regular login to their website. So,
and by Kyle's request, we have our first Archie book this week.
We do. We'll get to that too. So let's start with a book that I think I told you guys last time we had one of these that I was going to stop with it and wait for a trade because I couldn't anymore. And it's Project Superpowered Fractured States, number 4. Now I will say this. I skimmed it. It looked to be pretty much kind of similar to the other Project Superpowers books, but I don't know what happened because I don't remember number 3, and when the trade comes out, I will read it that way.
Yeah. This one's just getting stranger and stranger. I don't know what Ron Mars is doing here. Normally, by the 4th issue of the Dynamite series, we kind of figure out what's going on. And we still don't know who the mystery guy is. The fact that we all thought it was the Black Terror, nope, not the Black Terror. Nope. It is not the Black Terror. The Black Terror is still around, though he's not in good shape. And somebody's killing off all the patriotic-themed heroes, which you'd be surprised how many there are in this universe. And this happens to be a patriotic-themed villain that I guess was a hero at one point. I don't know. Yeah, this episode just kind of flies by. We get some history, and then we get some story, but we really don't get much. And then I believe they're being attacked by Alex Ross' creation. Because that floating flag just seems like something Alex Ross would have come up with. So if you're in on this one, stick with it, because it's got to be going somewhere. Best I can say about it.
I didn't think it was bad.
No.
I still have a lot of questions, though. I would have figured, the same as you, that by now, this being the 4th issue, I don't know how many issues were going to be in this arc, but I would have figured by now we'd find out who John is. And, the story intrigues me, and I want to stick with it, but I just hope the payoff is worth it. Right now, it feels like, who is this guy? Why are we taking so long before we figure it out? Are we saving that for the final, if issue 5 is the final issue for this arc? Is that what we're saving it for? Well, you better make it spectacular, or you just wasted time reading it. That's what it feels like to me, at least.
Let me ask you this question. And I when I talk about I'm going to wait for the trade, it's because I feel like sometimes stories are better bingeable. Right, like there are series that are better when you can watch end to end. Like for instance, The Boys. I don't enjoy watching The Boys one at a time. I usually prefer to watch 2 or 3 at a time. This current season is how do I put this? Screwing with that pretty hard. I can usually only watch one, and then I got to take a minute. But the first 2 seasons, I was 2 or 3 at a time, and take a break and then 2 or 3 at a time. Mm-hmm. Are there comics that y'all are reading right now that you think are better bingeable? Like this, going through and getting the payoff at the end, or there's another book that we have that we're reading regularly, which is a Betty Page. Mm-hmm. Alien Agenda. I think that book is great, but I think it would be read a lot easier as one big long book.
See, I don't, because I think there's certain buildup. If a book is written right, it writes for that weight. It writes for that space, so that the readers have a time to let it all marinate in their mind. It's kind of like with all these shows. I prefer shows that are released weekly, because then you get that week to go, oh my God, what's going to happen next? you go back and you enjoy the little, you can watch the videos online of breakdowns and stuff. If you binge the whole thing, then it's just this whole rush of information. You don't get that time to digest the individual episodes. And I think it's the same way with comics. So writing for the trade, reading the trades, it's fine, but I think you're missing part of it. When you're writing, you write for those breaks. You write to have that moment that the fans are going, what's going to happen? Oh my God, because it builds the excitement.
See, and that's kind of what I'm talking about, like with Sean here, with Draculina, right? Like, I think some of these, I think you're right, Dan. I think, and most comics, I agree with you. I want to read them one at a time as they come out. It's how I tend to read things, but there are some times where the build-up to me takes too long, and if I don't have enough keeping me hooked, I would just stop in the middle of a series. Whereas if I recognize early, like I kind of did with Superpowers, you know what? I'm going to enjoy this much more if I sit down and read 110 pages in one shot. Well, now, I can approach it that way, right? I don't have to be sucked in the first 22 pages. I can wait until the 35th page to really get hooked. And so I think one of the things that's happening in comics is that people are still writing single issues, but the trade market is so big that they're forgetting that you have to hook people in the first 22.
But I think you need to hook people in the first few pages, whether it's a trade or not.
It's true.
But you could be like me, and you got the memory of 10-second Tom. So sometimes, for me, it benefits because I do it this way. I get 1 or 2 issues to see if I like it. Sometimes I'll wait till a third. After that, I'll just trade, and then I'll read it all at once because my memory is so bad with comics, at least, that we've read a couple of these books on this show. I can't tell you what I read last week. I have to take notes because if I didn't, I'd just be sitting here being like, yeah, that was a book that I read.
So
I mean, for people like me with bad memories, sometimes the trade thing is just easier.
Yeah, I just think it's an interesting concept to talk about how the industry is changing in terms of the way we read books, right? Like, Sean says it's because you're old, Jay. I think it's because you have to put up with Sean.
Full-time job.
All right. Moving on, though. Red Sitha, number 3. This is another one that I think, were we not reading issue by issue for this, I would kind of just wait for the trade on this one as well. Only just because it comes out once a month, and I forgot what happened in issue 2. Once I was halfway through and I saw the little plasma guy, I remembered that.
Yeah.
Right? It took me a few minutes to remember what had happened. And so for me, when I have those kind of problems, that's usually an indicator. But once I remembered what was happening in this book, I really did enjoy it.
I'm kind of going the other way on this. I'm liking it less. It's a little more silly than I want from a Red Sonja story, and I know it's Red Sitha, but I'm just not getting into the silliness. Just this week, it felt like they played more for laughs than for adventure. So it's just not clicking with me suddenly. And I liked the first 2 episodes, but I was like, yeah, on this one,
That's pretty much the same way I felt. I was, there are parts of this book that are all right, but it's just, I don't know, for me, it's just not enough to grab me. Like, I can't really put my finger on it because, it has all the elements of a story that I feel like I should like, but I don't know. I just, I don't hate it, but I don't exactly like it either. Like, I think there's other Red Sonja titles that are better, especially that the Samurai Sonja, was that what it was called?
Yeah.
I thought that was a lot better.
Yeah, no, for sure. I will say this. This to me feels like if you were going to take Red Sonja and have it come out from Viz Media or Kodansha or Shonen Jump or one of those, like if you were going to write a Red Sonja manga, this is where you would go. A little more campy, the adventures maybe a little slower, more fast-paced jokes, and a little more time in the world because you're working in a different format. I think the story has the strong elements that would go into making a manga decent. I just don't think it translates to a 22-page format. All right, so the next book on the list is a book that I sent you guys late in the afternoon. Did y'all get a chance to read it?
Yeah.
Or should we skip it? All right.
No, I read it.
This is The Tiger's Tongue. Jay, you had big size.
I'm gonna go ahead and go on this one. There was another book on our list that when we get to it, you'll understand why. But I read this one right after it, so it was all right. But unfortunately, the book I read before it was so good that I don't feel like I gave this one the attention that it needed. I think I was still kind of so hyped from the book I read before that I was just kind of like, okay, last minute book, let me just read through this. It's a Mad Cave book though, and normally I like books from Mad Cave. I will probably go back a little later and reread this, just because, like I said, the book I read before it was so good, it just kind of overshadowed this one for me.
This felt like a fable to me, like
something out of the Jim Henson Storytellers we just finished.
Yeah, but not as good. I thought the art was okay, but it just, I don't know. I just didn't get into this one, and I gave it a good read, and I actually got to the books late today because I had a bunch of stuff happening. So this was the book I started with, which shows you how late I got to get to reading the books. And it didn't do much for me. I mean, it felt like they took a lot of time to set up the story. And it's like they talked about the river people, and I really never got the idea who the river people were or why they were, and there was protests, and I mean, it just got to the point I'm like, I don't care. I never got into it. So I wanted to, but just couldn't get into the story.
I imagine after having read the first issue of this, that each subsequent issue is going to be, they mentioned the trials that the two main characters are going to have to go through, even though they don't really feel like the main characters.
Yeah.
Like it feels like our narrator is the main character. But the two main characters are going to go through some trials. I feel like each subsequent book is going to be those, and those have the potential to really be interesting and, to really kind of go out there. But yeah, it felt like somebody took a myth or a story that's been told over generations, tried to manipulate it and turn it into a comic book. I also felt, what this really felt like to me? If Marvel had said, hey, we need to make Shuri from Black Panther a twin and do a 6-part miniseries with her. And here's this writer who's never wrote Black Panther before. They just know that a panther's a cat. Like, it didn't really feel fully fledged. And I liked the art. I thought the art was decent. I thought the writing was okay. So it'll be interesting to see how this goes on as we start doing more Mad Cave books.
Yeah.
So, Jay, when you talked about a book that was really good that you read right before it, was it this?
No, but this was good too. I enjoyed it.
I read all 168 pages.
I didn't go that far, boss. I read the first 2 stories in it. This was it was cheesy. It was fun. It reminded me of Sunday nights grocery shopping with my parents. And while we were being checked out, I would just grab an Archie Digest off the rack and read it while we were checking out. I only read the first 2 because I wasn't going to read 186 pages of this. Not all at once. I might go through later. But I liked it. It was a nice little trip down memory lane for me.
I didn't grow up on reading Archie. I never grabbed him. If I was grabbing a comic book, it was Marvel or DC. I never got into Archie. And reading this, it felt like 1950s to me. It felt like, there's a one specific story which has Betty and Archie going to the beach, and Archie is spending the whole time looking at other girls, and then suddenly there's a guy that is interested in Betty, and Archie gets mad and storms her, drags her away, and I'm like, really? That's what today's Archie is? It's 1950s thinking? And it still comes out like that? I mean...
Well, some of these are actually old Archie stories.
Okay, that would make a lot more sense.
Yeah, some of these are reprints from the original 22-page Archie books.
Yeah.
Especially the further you get into the book. Like, you get more reprints or more... This is an older Archie book. Here's the art, we're going to write new text kind of things. So yeah, it's this is your typical Betty and Veronica Archie book, right? Mm-hmm. It's a little bit more one-dimensional than if you were to get an Archie Digest or a Jughead or especially if you can get a Moose or one of those.
Well, we did get a Jughead story.
Right, we got a couple of Jughead stories. But no, like when the different titles kind of tell you what you're getting into. And so these are a little bit more one-dimensional, a little more vain, a little more slapstick. Mm-hmm. Whereas the titles they're putting out now with Archie or Jughead or some of those now are a little bit more modernized. Dan Parent does a great job with those characters.
Yeah.
I think he just tries to hold these two too closely to what they were when they first existed. But that said, any afternoon reading Archie is an afternoon where, once again, if you have to use both hemispheres of your brain, you're doing it wrong. Like, you can pick one or the other and switch. You can rest half of your brain at any given time.
These felt like Bob Hope and Bing Crosby jokes to me. From
right.
old roadshow type jokes, It's right. Like the one where Archie wants to go hiking and Veronica wants to go to the beach. And and she's like, well, then we're not going. And I'm going to go to the beach on my own. And then at the very end, she gets a phone call. And from Betty, she's going, hey, guess who I ran into while hiking today? It's like, that's the payoff of the joke.
Right. No, and the payoff is her getting angry that, yeah. Like, it's... The jokes aren't necessarily funny. They're just wholesome and clean and easy. And again, my love for Archie comics is centered in this. So often I read the heavy duty, super depressing, dark comics. Well, guess what? If Archie's jalopy has run out of gas and Jughead's pulling it because Archie's got a cheeseburger on the end of a string out in front of him, I'm happy.
Oh, I'm so not that guy.
Miss Jen just got this amazing art collection from Nate Butler, and in
Yeah,
it are
seen her post.
tons of Archie pages, and I just I want them. Like, so it's one of those things. Like for me, there's something about a book that just doesn't have any depth to it.
Mhm.
That's nice. And Jughead getting paid 5 dozen hamburgers to take Veronica to the big dance because her tennis coach can't is like something that I in real life. Crave case, castle, and I will be your chaperone to this thing. But you know, like, oh, it's super fun, super light. Expect much, but it's a good time. All right, so I asked Jay before if I needed to have seen this show to understand this comic. I watched Stranger Things season 1 and haven't watched a second since.
I watched the first episode of season 1 and haven't watched any since.
Okay. So I don't know if this book is good or not. It was entertaining. It was a fun read, but I don't know if it's good in the Stranger Things mythos.
Hey,
I kind of enjoyed it, and if this was what the show was about, were these two guys just accidentally being cops, I think I would enjoy it. What I saw in the first episode was a very forced, hey, this is the 80s. Isn't it great? It's like, that wasn't the 80s. I was there. That's what you think the 80s is when you didn't actually live in it. So, yeah, I didn't get into Stranger Things, but this was fun. And I don't know if on the series, is it Rob Morgan who plays one of the cops? The guy that played Turk in the Daredevil on all the...
Yeah, yes.
Because he sure looks like it on the cover.
Yeah.
And I love him. So, again, if this was what Stranger Things was these two guys just accidentally missing out on creepy crawlers and stuff, I'd be all over it. That'd be great.
I kind of wish it was. That was one of my notes for this because I love the show. We just finished watching season 4, part 2, and cried like babies. This book actually takes place in season 3. I could tell that first couple of panels exactly where it was. I liked the deputies on the show, and thought it was kind of cool that they were, they were featured pretty prominently in this. This is like their story.
Yeah.
I didn't read the entire thing. I read the majority of it. I'm going to be real honest. It's like I failed as a fan. I didn't know these things existed. I didn't know they're at an omnibus now. They have so many of these Stranger Things comics out there. I didn't know that. So I need to rectify that very quickly. I really did enjoy this one. The cops, how they are portrayed in the book, pretty much how they are on the show for the most part. They start getting a little wiser, but I kind of wish the show would feature them more like they did in this book.
So when season 1 was out and the first season of comic books came out, Dark Horse and Netflix sent comic book shops this giant standee that was like the cover photo that was on Netflix for season 1, and it was the cover of issue number 1, but it had a hole cut out so you could stick your face in it and you could be 11, which was dumb, but people loved it. And I go, I don't understand why people love it. Let me watch this show. So I watched season 1, and it just wasn't my jam, right?
Understandable.
Sometimes you see shows that are great that aren't your jam. See my stance on Game of Thrones. However, at this point with this book, and Triple B brought it up, and Alan agreed, I feel like this would be the single greatest television program ever made in the history of television for it to live up to the hype.
Yeah.
Like, the MASH series finale exists. This can't live up to that. So, like, I feel like I'd be watching and be like, okay, when am I going to be let down? Josh went. I entirely intend to. But I, like Dan, have memories of the 80s. Not because I participated in them, but because I was forced to watch videos of them when I was a small child. And I identify as a Gen Xer, so it's a thing. But it to me, if it feels too much like I'm being hit over the head with the 80s, I'm going to be like, I'm good. If I'm going to watch it again, if for no other reason than people I know just a little keep charting 35 years after their songs came out because of this show, and I can get behind that. So
I will give it credit for a major resurgence for Dungeons and Dragons.
It's true.
But other than that, I got nothing for the show.
Between Game of Thrones and Joe Manganiello, Dungeons and Dragons is having its best life.
Yeah, and Critical Role. But yeah,
Critical Role. Joe Manganiello, who was married to Sofia Vergara, which is just weird to me, was on one of these talk shows, and I saw a clip saying about how they were selling their house. And he, in his basement, has his Olympic caliber gym where he works out. Then there's a wall. Then there's his Dungeons and Dragons dungeon.
And he's selling that house?
They're moving into a bigger house so he can have a bigger Dungeons and Dragons room. But he goes, I was really worried about what the realtor was going to say the Dungeons and Dragons room was. So I left all my books on the table just so people knew. Because he's really weird. He's like, I'm really worried that people are going to know this is my house and they're going to associate something else with that room and me and my... I was cracking up.
Nice.
All right, we had a Vampirella one shot, Savage Tales one shot.
It's not really a Vampirella one shot because it's Vampirella, really. Red Sonja, Alan Quartermain, and Captain
some other guy,
Gulliver.
Yeah. Let me put it this way. I liked the Vampirella story. I okayed the Red Sonja story. The other two were meh for me.
I liked the Alan Quartermain story. It was meh on the other stories.
Now, this might help, Dan. Who the hell is Alan Quartermain?
Oh my God, he's an adventurer. It's Sean Connery's character from League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. It's there was Alan Quartermain movies with Richard Chamberlain.
The Lost City of Gold, or
Alan Quartermain's an old time adventurer, like a little bit like Indiana Jones, but probably set in the 20s. Yeah, Alan Quartermain's cool, and the fact that it's a Cthulhu-based story, I think, was awesome. You know?
See, I'm on the opposite end of the spectrum with that. Cthulhu, to me, is starting to become the zombie vampire trope. I see it in a lot of books nowadays.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that I thought the story was awesome. It was just that point I was like, well, of course, they said his name in the thing, so obviously it's going to be him at the end.
Yeah.
I don't want him to be tropey. You know, there's so many other cryptids and old gods, Lovecraftian things that people could start using. It just feels like right now Cthulhu's like the flavor of the month. That was my only problem with that story. Now, Vampirella, I liked it, but for whatever reason, it felt like a Zenoscope story.
Yeah.
It's like you could have had, Sella or Sky Mathers in place of Vampirella.
Yeah, it didn't feel like a Vampirella story.
The Red Sonja story, I want an entire book of that. I really enjoyed that one. I really liked that one. I want to know more about, the thing. I want to know more about it. I want to see what led to getting it into that executioner's hands. I want to see that. Like, less Red Sitha, more of that for me. The last story, never heard of that person. I had no idea what was going on. I thought it was okay. But the ending of that book was like, okay, so what is this person? Is he a person? What is going on?
I have a feeling that that's supposed to be Gulliver from Gulliver's Travels.
Huh.
Captain Gulliver. And it's written by David Avalon, the guy that does Elvira. So I think it's an old pulp character version of Gulliver's Travels.
Huh. Interesting.
Now, and I don't know, and sometimes Nick shows up and is in the comments, and I haven't seen him tonight. If this is a thing that's going to launch a series of stories, I think this is a great idea.
Yeah.
Right? If you're going to get an Alan Quartermain book, even a miniseries now, or a OGN or something, okay. If you're going to do a Gulliver OGN or miniseries, great. Yeah, the Red Sonja, we need more of that. That was good. The Vampirella, I liked. We need more of that. But as I've been saying on this show repeatedly now, too many titles with these characters make it confusing with them.
Yeah.
Like, I think this is a great idea if we're launching new series, but is now the right time for it. So maybe with maybe with Red Sonja and Vampirella, hold off on those and launch the other two, and we'll see where we're going. But if it's just a one shot, it's, you know.
And I gotta agree with Sean that where in the world is Carmen Sandiego Vampirella story we read last week?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I'd really love that to be a miniseries.
Yeah, I think that's my issue with Vampirella right now is there doesn't seem to be a consistent purpose for Vampirella. Red Sonja, she's an adventurer. It's that time you kind of get she's a sword for hire, so you understand what drug. Vampirella, is she taking out bad guys? I mean, what is her story? What is she doing? It seems to be kind of all over the place. Sometimes she seems to have a purpose. Sometimes she seems to just be surviving. There doesn't seem to be a consistency.
Right, and I would say if there were one Vampirella book, there wasn't Vampirella and Draculina and we could see what that purpose is and what their goals are.
Yeah.
It's the same with Red Sonja. If there weren't so many, it would make it clear that Red Sonja is a sword for hire, that she is kind of an adventurer character, that she is a go where the wind takes her. I will say that the Red Sonja with the chainmail shirt, and there's another Red Sonja that we just had that had pants. Those two being so different from traditional Red Sonja, I think it's okay. They can stand on their own. But the rest of it just gets real muddy. And to throw in one-shots that are also include those characters just makes the waters even worse. So.
Yeah. But you got a company that is making money on these characters, and that's their job. They're a business. So.
But I think they also have to do right by those licenses, right? Mm-hmm. Like if you dilute Red Sonja or Vampirella too much, mm-hmm. that money's going to dry up real quick, and then the people who own those licenses aren't going to be super happy.
Well, Dynamite owns Vampirella, so they're fine.
Yeah, but you know what I mean. Like, maybe let Zenoscope do a Vampirella story, just a injection in the arm. Do a crossover where Belle appears in one of the Dynamite books and Vampirella appears in it. Like, you can do stuff like that, and it doesn't give you that problem. But I just think we're getting too many.
Yeah.
So, all right. So we have a trade and then two more books.
Yep. And the trade I picked for you.
You have no idea what you've wandered into. We'll go with The Last Ronin hardcover. This is TMNT The Last Ronin, Kevin Eastman and Peter Laird with Tom Waltz. This is all 5 issues of Last Ronin, which if you were trying to read as it came out, you may remember Last Ronin #1. There were a bunch of problems. It was allocated. It was hard to get. I didn't have any trouble, but other people did. So books that were instantly Scott, 100 copies of every issue in the room behind me right now, because I had to buy 100 issues so I could get the 1 in 100 variants. I'm that guy. So this is the greatest Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles writing that has been done since Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles were at Mirage Comics. There, I said it. You don't like it? Fight me.
I'm not going to fight you. This has been the best turtle story I've read, and I feel. I mean, I'm a little biased because Tom's an actual friend, and I really enjoy his work. So having him step in with Kevin to do the story, I love it. I love the art. I love the story.
And Peter was more involved than he's been in years.
Yeah.
I actually said to Kevin and Peter in separate emails that I hadn't met either of them until they had stopped working together. It's like when two friends from separate places start dating each other. It's really weird. And then how do you know them? And then you realize they knew each other when they were children or something.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's how this felt when I heard about this. And I hung on every word, on every page, on every panel for months and months with this book.
Yeah, if you want to send a set of those books to me, I'll take them because this is great.
Jay?
So Sean was actually collecting this, and I'd never read it. I couldn't just skim this. I read the whole thing. I got done with the first little part, and I was like, nope, I got to keep going. This, wow. Just wow. This book was so damn good. This is the book that was last on my list. And then I tried to read the Tiger's Tongue, and I just couldn't pay attention to it. I mean, this story, it was heartbreaking. It was, man, like the reveal to me, because I make sure I didn't get spoiled on this, but the reveal to me, I was like, nope. I didn't see that coming. And the fact that it has kind of a little bit of a Dark Knight Returns feel to it, because it is an older turtle. It is older people in the universe. It was just, I was blown away. I couldn't believe I sat there and read the whole thing. I just couldn't stop. But it was great. This right here was my favorite book of the week.
Yeah, I'm going to agree with you on that.
If it gives you guys any indication as to how much I love this book, I have the regular cover coming. I have the Kevin Eastman exclusive coming. I have the Blue Line Collector's Edition coming. I have a artist proof coming. I spent what my financial advisor called a unwise amount on this book since issue 1 came out. But it's, as someone who, I say this, like, Spider-Man is the reason that I was attracted to comics, but the Turtles are the reason I'm in it. Like, it's that. My first memories of comics are Spider-Man, the Turtles, and Bazooka Joe.
Yeah.
Like, and this just felt like home.
So
it really did. Like, and I called Kevin after the last issue and said, hey, if you're gonna F with my emotions, the least you could do is give me a warning that I'm going to cry all over my comic book. And, he goes, I'm glad you liked it. And I go, so how many of these 100 copies do you want? It was like, I got to get these out of here. Like, this is bad. It really was, guys. It's book of the year for me. But ironically, I put it up because I wanted to save this book for last. Mind Management Bootleg #1 from Matt Kent.
But that's not the last book.
Oh, you're right. Okay. We'll save the last book for last.
Okay.
We'll do this one next.
Okay.
This is what happens when I go out of order, Dan. My ADHD messes with me. So, did either of you guys read Mind Management when it first came out?
No.
Oh, that's interesting. All right. I'm anxious to see what you think without having.
I had no idea what was going on before this. I have no idea what's going on after I read it. But I'm curious. But it felt like Matt just wanted to mess with us. It felt like his purpose was to go full on Inception on us, just make it as weird and crazy as possible. And if you're still around after episode 1, maybe he'll tell you what's going on, but it's its own test to see if you're going to stay.
And I'm a Matt Kent fan, but that's mainly because I got introduced to him through his Exo Manowar series from Valiant,
which is great. Yeah.
Yeah. And I felt a bit attacked when I read the first few pages of this with the flyers. I felt a little bit attacked. I was like, okay, so what is going on here? Like it really felt like it was speaking directly to me. This was a weird one for me. It felt a bit Men in Black mixed with They Live. And I don't know why, but I have to read more. I have to read more. I want to know what the hell is going on.
So Mind Management Bootleg picks up where Mind Management, which ran from 2012 to 2015, left off. Except that you're in the future. I have to go back through and reread the first series. I have the trade to figure out how far in the future, but you're in the future, right? And it may be that it talks about the time from the Great Confluence, when there was the earthquake and the hurricane and all this stuff happened to destroy the civilization, to now. That may just be the first series was Kent basically looking at something like MK Ultra or The Men Who Stared at Goats. Some of those weird, not necessarily conspiracy theories, but what did the man from DARPA do kind of stories.
Yeah.
And putting his very twisted twist on them. And that's what Mind Management was. It was, there are people among us whose minds are so powerful, they can do things that normal people can't. And they are the ones that actually run the world. It's not the Illuminati or the government. It's these people. And some can control animals. Some can control weather. Some can control other things, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so in the first series, it was, okay, what if you took all of those people, put them together, had them organized, and then one of them went rogue? This seems to be picking up where that left off. This was, in my opinion, 2012's Department of Truth, or regarding the matter of Oswald's body. This was the way of talking about conspiracy theories and weird things back then, when conspiracy theories weren't literally everything all the time. So I'm anxious to see where this goes. I like this character of Kiddo. I like him. I think it's an interesting story. I'll be very interested to see where it goes. And then the last book we have is a book that I think Dan and I talked about when issue 1 came out. And then we've not talked about since.
Probably.
And I'm glad we jumped back into it. This is Basilisk number 9.
So for this one, I actually have issue 1 of this, but I haven't read anything past issue 1. And even being a jumping on point, I'm still kind of lost. I really enjoyed it, and like with most things that Cullen Bunn writes, if I haven't read a bunch of it, this just makes me want to go back and read the rest of it now. Because I want to, I dug the first issue. I remember that much about it. And I dug this issue. So, yeah, I want to go back and read the rest of it now. I'm a big Cullen Bunn fan, though, too. So,
every year around the 4th of July, I rewatch Band of Brothers. There was a part at the beginning of this book that kind of had that vibe to me, right? Where it's this organization is bigger than the individuals, and that almost cultish thing that I'm not saying the military is a cult or anything. That's not what I'm saying. But what I'm saying is that kind of repetitive drilling education, rote education that people go through. It kind of had that feeling, which was interesting. And then all of a sudden it takes a real strong left turn to where, okay, is this person a product of that? Or is this person outside of that and related to somebody who is a product of that? What is happening? And what happened to her eye?
Mm-hmm. Yep. I'm going to sum this up into one sentence. Cullen Bunn decided to do the New Mutants. That's how it reads to me. It feels like this is like a team like the New Mutants were when they were first pulled together. They're not the X-Men. They're not X-Men. It's this team that they don't really know. They're kind of becoming a team. So it just feels like that's what he's doing, his version of New Mutants. How that works out, I don't know. We're picking it up on issue 9. And this is supposed to be the start of a new story arc, but there's not enough there for me to understand what the hell's going on, but there's enough there to make me go, let's see the next one. I'd like to see the next one, please. I don't know if I want to see the previous one, but I want to see the next one.
Issue 1 was really good. It was really good. I remember that. I don't know why I stopped getting them, but issue 1 was really good.
If we covered it, then we read the first one. I don't remember it at all. But then we get so many Cullen Bunn books.
Yeah.
And they're all just out there.
Yeah, I had actually seen this in previews and had Jenna pick it up from the store. So I was really excited for it. It was really good.
All right. So we'll have to continue with Basilisk.
Yes.
All right. Well, guys, this has been in stores this week.
Has it?
If you're looking for a comic shop nearby to you, head over to comicshoplocator.com. All you have to do is type in the area code where you are, or the zip code, whatever. You have to type in the one number wherever you are, and it will tell you where comic shops are nearby to you. Go visit them. Call them before you go, because you don't ever know. You don't know necessarily that the hours listed there are correct. Just make sure you call them, and every place is different. But make sure you give them a ring. Head in, check them out. We will be back next. Dan will be back tomorrow and Thursday.
Yes.
I will be back Friday night with Nick for the original art show. Jay will be back as the producer of Space Cadets.
Thursday.
And then the three of us will be back next Tuesday. Same bat time, same bat channel, but only if I can get that Batman license. So I probably should ask, but in the meantime, fingers crossed. We'll see everybody next time on In Stores this week. Bye, everybody.